What is your first thing this time?
So I try really hard to do current things, but it's difficult for me because I feel like most of my interests right now involve the baby.
You're done being interested in new things, essentially.
So for this week, my first, mention is Wallace Stevens.
Wallace Stevens.
He's a poet.
Okay.
He was a poet, I should say.
I thought it was the dude from Princess Bride. That's Wallace Shawn.
Yeah. Although that could be
Wallace Shawn would be a really good one. Yeah. Dude's had a storied career.
Yeah, Jesse Thorne interviewed him on Bullseye.
Oh, you're kidding?
Listened to it yet.
I want to hear that.
So Wallace Stevens died in 1955. But his kind of big thing that was really memorable for me for a while. So I learned about him and William Carlos Williams around the same time.
Okay.
And what was notable about both of them is they had very kind of boring jobs. William Carlos Williams was a doctor, and Wallace.
It's not really a boring job. You're pulling shit out of people's.
Not at all artsy.
Not poetic. Yeah.
Yeah. And Wallace Stevens spent most of his life working as an executive for an insurance company in Connecticut.
I don't think as that being like the on ramp onto the stage of poetry.
Kind of the big mythos about him is that he used to write poems on slips of paper on his walk to the office, and then his secretary would type them up for him.
Well, that's great.
But another cool thing about him, he didn't get his first publication until he was 35, and his first book of poems didn't come out until he was 44.
Holy shit.
Yeah, which is really kind of unique. I mean, I think a lot of people hit 30 and feel like, oh, I haven't accomplished anything. I guess that dream's dead.
And very few people, I think even like a much smaller subset think like, oh, I'm 35. Time to become a poet. Yeah, like exactly. What?
So some of his best known poems, which I'll say just for the people out there who may be big poetry nerds, The Emperor of Ice Cream, which is kind of his biggest one, and The Snowman, Sunday Morning, The Idea of Order at Key West. Interesting thing about Wallace Stevens, much like Hemingway, got real into Key West, Florida. And there's actually all these stories. So Wallace Stevens, the guy, not particularly great, like big alcoholic, and apparently got in physical fights with both Robert Frost and Hemingway.
Now, Hemingway, I could see that being true about. Was Frost a real, did he have a tight haymaker? Is that, I would not assume that about Robert Frost.
Most of his feud with Frost took place in letters and correspondence. They would kind of jab at each other.
But for a poet, that's like a dirty shot to the nards.
So here's my thing with Wallace Stevens. It's very rare for me to like entire Wallace Stevens poems, but he's got these little pithy stanzas that just kill me.
I really hope you're about to read poetry because that's my favorite thing in the whole world.
I am.
Oh, good.
So this is from The Snowman, and this is just 3 lines of the poem that just get me. For the listener who listens in the snow, and nothing himself beholds, nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is.
Damn, Wallace Stevens.
Isn't that great? Is the whole poem is about this kind of stark, wintry wasteland. And I just love that line, the nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is.
That's really good. Do you have more? I want more poetry.
The thing, so this is all going to sound like I'm kind of high, but I promise you.
I've been with Rachel all evening, I assume, unless she went to the bathroom to eat weed. Do you eat weed? I don't know. So, go ahead.
What the kids do now. Okay, so this is from a poem called The Well-Dressed Man with a Beard.
We've never talked about this ever. Rachel went to school for poetry, and it is not a thing that really comes up a lot, but whenever it does, I cannot tell you how much happiness it brings me.
Yeah, I went graduate school at University of Chicago, and they have a 1-year program in humanities that I went to, and I wrote a collection of poems.
You realize by saying that the folks are going to want you to read them on the show.
I'm terrified.
No, well, that's your. Please do not pressure Rachel to do that.
So
that's her prerogative.
This is another 3 lines from The Well-Dressed Man with a Beard. I think also at the end, both these are the big closers. And I feel like this is so poignant right now and all the terrible things that are happening in the world. So here are the lines. After the final no, there comes a yes. And on that yes, the future world depends. No was the night. Yes is the present sun.
Rachel just dissolved after she read that. It was very good. I literally
got chills while I was reading it.
Yeah, it was really good.
It's so powerful for me. It's interesting. I'm not a huge fan of his poem start to finish, but those closers are incredible. Just thinking of this, 40-something-year-old man walking to his insurance company job.
Did he eventually quit the insurance company job, or was that like is this his side gig?
I mean, that's the thing. Like, so he won the Pulitzer Prize for poetry for his collected poems in 1955, which was also the year he died. So I'm not sure if it was posthumous or not, but I mean, it's not like
it's not like it's bringing in the big bucks.
I'm sure he's making a decent living at the insurance company. It doesn't necessarily seem prudent to quit that for his poems. So I just love a lot about him. And I obviously love those little short snippets there.
I would pay any amount of money for, I don't know how this would exist, but like a nice, like viral video clip of him just tussling with Robert Frost.
He was really critical of Robert Frost, and they would exchange jabs because they had very different styles.
Critical of Robert Frost's
of poetry.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah,
I think the road less traveled is bad.
I have to find the clip from their correspondence. I'll share it in the Facebook group.
Some gold things can stay. That was him, right?
I don't think so.
Oh, no, wait. Oh, shit. Hold on. Nothing gold can stay wasn't Robert Frost?
I apologize. I'm not very good with stuff like that. Oh, it is.
Give me your degree. It's mine now. Now who's the poetry one?
That.
I just like The Outsiders a lot.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. That's what resonated with me. Now, memorizing poetry is not a big part of poetry school.
Really?
Really?
Then what are you doing?
That was actually something that was really popular. My grandma, who has a terrible memory now, is still able to recite poems.
That was my favorite. My first meeting with your grandma, like you guys, just her reciting poetry to you from memory was like, oh my God, I'm getting touched just thinking about it.
So that's Wallace Stevens.
That was really good. I really want you to talk about poetry on the show as much as you possibly can, because I think it's very good.
I got a whole arsenal of poets that I'm a big fan of.
Good.